The galaxy had seen countless wars. Empires had risen from dust, conquered thousands of worlds, and disappeared into history. Every generation believed it was stronger than the one before. Every emperor believed their rule would last forever. But hidden inside the oldest archives of the galaxy was a warning that almost nobody remembered. It was never written on public monuments. It was never taught in military academies. It existed only inside sealed records that very few beings were allowed to read. One sentence appeared again and again. Do not make war with humanity. No explanation, no history, only the warning. For thousands of years, most civilizations ignored it. They believed it was nothing more than an old superstition left behind by frightened ancestors. The Aurak's Dominion certainly believed that. The Dominion ruled nearly half the known galaxy. Its banner flew above thousands of planets. Endless fleets protected its borders. Every neighboring civilization either paid tribute or lived under its control. Its people proudly claimed there had never been a stronger empire. Inside the enormous imperial citadel, floating above the capital world of Auraxis Prime, thousands of officials gathered inside the Hall of Stars. The room itself was breathtaking. Massive windows looked out into space where hundreds of battleships silently waited like steel giants. Golden banners hung from the ceiling. Statues of past emperors stood along the walls, each one remembered for another great conquest. At the center of the hall sat Emperor Kalor, tall, calm, confident. His silver armor reflected the blue light of distant stars. He studied a glowing map of the galaxy, while military commanders waited for his decision. One bright section on the map blinked steadily, a small cluster of human colonies. Compared to the Dominion, they looked insignificant. These are the humans? Kalor finally asked. One admiral nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. They have expanded quietly over the last century. No major wars, no large military alliances, no aggressive movements. Another commander smiled. They appear peaceful. Soft laughter spread across the chamber. Peaceful civilizations rarely survived for long. The Emperor leaned back in his throne. So this is the famous humanity everyone whispers about? Another wave of quiet laughter followed. One general stepped forward. Our scouts report only a modest defense fleet. Their colonies are well organized, but nothing beyond ordinary. They should surrender within weeks. Several ministers agreed immediately. One even suggested dividing humanity's worlds among loyal governors before the invasion had even begun. Everything seemed decided. Then the enormous entrance doors slowly opened. Every conversation stopped. An elderly figure entered the hall. His robes were faded. His movements were slow, but everyone recognized him. Professor Valoran, the oldest living historian in the Dominion. He had spent over 400 years studying civilizations that no longer existed. The Emperor respected his knowledge, even if few others did. Valoran carried an ancient data crystal, unlike modern technology. Its surface glowed faintly. He stopped before the throne. Your Majesty. Kalor smiled politely. You've come to celebrate another victory before it begins? The old historian remained silent for several seconds. Finally, he spoke. I have come to ask you not to begin this war. The room became strangely quiet. One commander laughed. With humans. Another joined him. They're traitors and explorers. What danger could they possibly present? Valoran looked around the chamber. His tired eyes carried something none of the others possessed. Fear. Real fear. I have searched archives older than our empire. I have studied civilizations erased from history, and every time I found the same warning. He carefully placed the ancient crystal onto the floor. Blue light spread across the hall. Old symbols appeared in the air. Names of forgotten empires, star systems that no longer existed. Entire civilizations, one after another. Every record ended the same way. Status: extinct. The officers exchanged confused glances. Valoran touched another symbol. The projection changed. A single sentence appeared above every vanished empire. They ignored the warning about humanity. Silence filled the chamber. Even the Emperor stopped smiling. One young officer frowned. These records could be fake. Valoran slowly shook his head. I personally confirmed them across 12 ancient archives. Another general folded his arms. Then perhaps humans destroyed those empires. The historian looked directly into his eyes. No. The answer surprised everyone. They disappeared. What do you mean, disappeared? I mean exactly that. No battles, no invasions, no survivors. They simply vanished. A cold feeling spread across the room. Valoran continued. Every empire believed humanity was weak. Every empire attacked. And shortly afterward, they ceased to exist. The emperor finally stood. His voice remained calm. So your advice is that the greatest empire ever built should fear a civilization with fewer than 50 settled worlds? Valoran answered without hesitation. Yes. Several officers burst into laughter. The emperor raised one hand, restoring order. You truly believe these humans defeated civilizations far greater than themselves? The old historian lowered his head. No. Another uncomfortable silence followed. I believe they warned them. Kaelor narrowed his eyes. And then? Valoran's voice became almost a whisper. They ignored the warning. The emperor slowly walked toward the glowing map. He stared at humanity's small territory. So you cannot explain how these empires vanished? No. You possess no proof humans attacked them? No. You simply have old stories. Valoran closed his eyes. They are not stories. They are graves. The emperor turned. His expression hardened. The RX Dominion does not build its future upon fear. He raised one hand toward the holographic galaxy. Our destiny is expansion. Our enemies survive only because we allow it. He looked directly at every commander. Prepare the first Imperial fleet. Thousands of officers saluted. Human space will become Dominion territory. Cheers echoed throughout the Hall of Stars. Only Valoran remained silent. As soldiers carried away the ancient crystal, he whispered words almost nobody heard. You have already repeated their first mistake. Far away, light years beyond the Imperial capital on the edge of human-controlled space, a small observation station quietly detected unusual movement. No alarm sounded. No panic spread. A human officer simply watched the incoming fleet markers appear one by one. He sighed. They're coming. Another officer looked at the screen. Should we alert Earth? The older man nodded once. They already know. On Earth, deep beneath mountains older than recorded history, far below cities, far below oceans of solid rock, hidden doors that had never opened during human civilization quietly unlocked. Ancient machines awakened. Soft blue lights appeared inside endless underground chambers. Dust that had rested for thousands of years slowly drifted into the air. No human touched the controls. No one pressed a button. Something else had heard the Dominion's decision. One ancient system activated another, then another. Across countless hidden chambers, forgotten engines began humming for the first time in ages. On a dark monitor, a single line of unknown symbols slowly translated itself into modern human language. Ancient treaty broken. A second line appeared, containment systems awakening. Far above, humanity still hoped for peace. Far away, the first Imperial fleet crossed the border with complete confidence. None of its captains noticed that every long-range sensor had quietly stopped recording. None of them saw the immense shadow moving silently between the stars. And before a single Dominion warship reached the first human colony, the entire fleet disappeared. Without an explosion, without a distress call, without leaving behind even a single piece of wreckage. The only signal that reached the Dominion was a broken transmission filled with static. Then 3 final words. It found us. The disappearance of the first Imperial fleet sent a shockwave across the Orax Dominion, unlike anything in its long history. At first, the Imperial Navy refused to believe the reports. Fleets did not simply vanish. Thousands of warships equipped with the most advanced sensors, weapons, and communication systems could not disappear without leaving a battlefield behind. Admirals insisted that there had to be an error in the navigation network or a malfunction inside the communication relays. But as more reports arrived from distant monitoring stations, the truth became impossible to deny. The fleet had reached the edge of human space, and then ceased to exist. No explosion, no emergency beacon, no debris field. It was as if an invisible hand had erased an entire armada from reality. Inside the Hall of Stars, the atmosphere had completely changed. Only hours earlier, the room had echoed with laughter and confidence. Now, silence ruled the chamber. Emperor Kalor stood before the giant holographic map, staring at the blinking marker where the First Fleet had vanished. Every officer waited for someone else to offer an explanation, but none came. The Emperor finally broke the silence with a single question. Did humanity claim responsibility? A communications officer bowed respectfully before answering. No, Your Majesty. They have sent only one message. Kalor nodded. Read it. The officer activated the recording. A calm human voice filled the hall. To the RX Dominion. We did not destroy your fleet. Turn back while you still can. Peace remains possible. The message ended. There was no threat, no celebration, and no demand. The simple warning somehow made the room feel colder. General Varric stepped forward, his face filled with anger. They are lying. This is psychological warfare. They want us to hesitate. Several admirals quickly agreed. One suggested that the missing fleet had entered an advanced cloaking trap. Another believed the humans had secretly developed a weapon capable of hiding wreckage from sensors. No one wanted to admit that they had absolutely no evidence. Professor Valoran quietly remained near the edge of the chamber. He recognized the pattern immediately. Every ancient record he had ever studied described the same sequence. First came the warning. Then came disbelief. Then came the disappearance. He wanted to speak again, but he could already see that no one was willing to listen. Emperor Kalor finally made his decision. Send the 2nd and 3rd Imperial fleets together. Double the escorts. Activate every sensor known to the Dominion. This time, we will discover the truth. The order spread across the Empire within minutes. Massive shipyards became alive with activity as thousands of engineers prepared another enormous invasion force. Across Dominion worlds, citizens watched patriotic broadcasts declaring that humanity had attacked without honor and that justice would soon be delivered. Most people believed the official story without question. After all, the Dominion had never lost a war. Far away, inside the Solar Council chamber on Earth, the mood could not have been more different. Human representatives from dozens of colonies gathered around a circular table beneath a simple blue flag showing Earth's oceans and stars. There were no celebrations over the vanished fleet. Instead, every face carried concern. President Elena Carter looked toward Admiral Nathan Hayes. Any sign that they accepted our warning? Hayes slowly shook his head. No, Madam President. They're mobilizing an even larger force. A heavy silence followed. Finally, one elderly scientist spoke the words that everyone feared. Then the protocol is continuing. No one asked what the protocol was. Every person in the room already knew. Thousands of kilometers beneath Earth's oldest mountain range, ancient chambers continued waking from a sleep that had lasted longer than recorded human history. Endless rows of dark machines slowly came alive, their blue light spreading through tunnels carved by hands no living human had ever seen. Strange symbols moved across transparent displays, written in a language that modern science still could not fully understand. One by one, hidden satellites awakened beyond the moon. Silent stations buried inside distant asteroids restored power. Massive structures drifting between stars opened glowing eyes that had remained closed for thousands of years. None of these systems belonged to humanity. Humans had only inherited the responsibility of protecting them. Across neutral space, other civilizations noticed the changes long before the Dominion did. On the ancient world of Salar, An elderly alien priest looked into the night sky and quietly ordered his people to leave their border colonies. They asked why. He refused to answer. On another world, a peaceful merchant republic suddenly canceled every trade route leading toward human territory. Entire refugee convoys began moving away from the frontier without explanation. Rumors spread rapidly through hidden communication networks. The old warning had returned. Most younger species laughed at the stories, but the oldest races packed their belongings in silence. Professor Vellerin traveled alone to the Dominion's Grand Archive, hoping to find something the ancient records had missed. Deep beneath the capital city, he unlocked sealed vaults untouched for centuries. There he discovered fragments of damaged star maps, blackened data crystals, and journals written by civilizations that no longer existed. One damaged recording finally activated. A frightened alien voice echoed through the darkness. "If you find this, do not blame humanity. They tried to stop us. We believed their kindness meant weakness. We were wrong." The recording ended in loud static, before cutting off forever. Bellerin's hands trembled as he realized every warning had been telling the same story all along. Meanwhile, the Second and Third Imperial fleets crossed into the frontier with overwhelming confidence. Together they numbered more than 12,000 warships. Their commanders activated every scanning system available, determined to expose humanity's hidden weapon. Yet their sensors detected nothing unusual. Space appeared calm and empty. Stars burned peacefully in every direction. Human colonies remained silent. It almost felt as though the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Then every ship's navigation system froze at exactly the same moment. Lights flickered, weapons powered down, long-range scanners filled with strange geometric patterns that no computer could identify. One captain looked through his bridge window and felt his blood run cold. Far ahead, where empty space should have been, an enormous black structure slowly emerged from the darkness. It was larger than a planet, perfectly silent and completely invisible until that very moment. No engines, no weapons, no signs of life. It simply floated there as if it had always existed. Before anyone could react, every communication channel across the fleet activated by itself. A calm mechanical voice echoed through every bridge. "Protected civilization confirmed. Violation detected. Containment protocol continues." Then, the transmission ended, and every star around the fleet suddenly disappeared. Darkness swallowed the stars around the Second and Third Imperial fleets. One moment, thousands of Dominion warships floated beneath familiar constellations. The next, every star outside their viewports had vanished, replaced by an endless black void. Panic spread across every bridge. Navigation systems failed completely. Artificial gravity flickered. Long-range communications produced nothing except sharp bursts of static. Admiral Tarek slammed his fist onto the command console. "Report." Officers rushed between their stations, but every answer sounded the same. "No response from the fleet, sir. Weapons offline. Engines responding at 30%. We can't locate the nearest star." It was as though the entire armada had been pulled into a place that did not belong anywhere on their maps. The enormous black structure remained perfectly still ahead of them. It had no visible engines, no weapons, and no markings. It simply existed, silent and impossible. Suddenly, its surface began to glow with thin blue lines that stretched across its body like rivers of light. Every Dominion sensor tried to scan it, but none could measure its size. One computer estimated it was larger than a moon. Another claimed it was infinitely large. Finally, every screen displayed the same message: "Object cannot be classified." Before anyone could recover, the mysterious structure slowly rotated toward the fleet. A wave of invisible energy swept across the ships. Nothing exploded. No alarm sounded. Yet every weapon system shut down instantly. Missiles became lifeless metal. Laser cannons lost power. Even emergency backup reactors refused to activate. On Earth, the first reports reached the Global Defense Council only minutes later. President Elena Carter listened quietly as military officers confirmed the impossible. The ancient network has expanded beyond the frontier. Admiral Nathan Hayes looked exhausted. We've lost direct observation of the Dominion fleets, but our deep space monitors confirm the protocol is still active. Around the room, no one celebrated. Humanity had spent generations hoping this day would never come. A young council member finally asked the question everyone feared. Can we stop it? Silence answered first. Then Dr. Maya Chen slowly shook her head. We were never given control, only responsibility. Far beneath Earth's oldest mountain range, hidden elevators carried President Carter, Admiral Hayes, and a small group of trusted officials into a place few humans had ever seen. The elevator descended for nearly 20 minutes before stopping beside a gigantic metal door covered with symbols older than any known human language. As the doors opened, everyone stepped into an underground chamber so vast that its ceiling disappeared into darkness. Endless rows of towering machines stretched beyond sight. Soft blue lights pulsed across ancient walls. Transparent columns carried streams of glowing energy upward through the enormous cavern. Everything was awake. At the center of the chamber stood a smooth black sphere almost 30 meters tall. It floated silently above the floor without support. Dr. Chen approached it carefully. Our ancestors discovered this thousands of years ago, she explained quietly. Humanity didn't build any of this. We inherited it. Admiral Hayes looked around in disbelief despite visiting the chamber before. Do we know who created it? Dr. Chen answered with a sad smile. No. Every civilization that might have known disappeared before our recorded history began. President Carter placed her hand on the ancient console beside the sphere. Instantly, glowing symbols appeared in the air. Slowly, they translated themselves into modern English. Caretakers identified. Human authority confirmed. Containment protocol active. External aggression detected. Another line appeared beneath it. Primary objective: preserve galactic stability. President Carter whispered, It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Dr. Chen nodded. Yes, and that's what frightens me. Meanwhile, inside the Dominion fleets, confusion turned into fear. Admiral Tarek ordered every ship to retreat, but none of the engines responded. Instead, the black structure projected thousands of glowing symbols into the darkness. They formed enormous rings surrounding the trapped armada. The symbols rotated slowly, creating silent walls of blue light. Scientists aboard several research vessels desperately analyzed them. The results made no sense. The symbols appeared to rewrite the laws of physics around the fleet itself. Space no longer behaved normally. Distance changed every second. Time readings varied from ship to ship. Some clocks ran faster, others stopped completely. Then, without warning, every screen aboard every Dominion vessel activated. An image appeared. It was not a human. It was not a machine. It looked like a figure made entirely of moving starlight. Its voice was calm, ancient, and completely emotionless. Conflict against protected civilization has been verified. Historical records reviewed. Previous outcomes confirmed. You have been warned. Admiral Tarek stepped closer to the screen. Who are you? The figure ignored the question. Compliance remains possible. Withdraw immediately. Further aggression will expand containment. The transmission ended before anyone could reply. Back inside the Imperial Citadel, Emperor Kaelor received fragmented reports from the frontier. None of them agreed with one another. Some officers claimed a giant station had trapped the fleet. Others insisted they were under attack by invisible enemies. One report even suggested that space itself had become unstable. Furious, Kaelor rejected every explanation. Machines don't erase fleets. Superstitions don't defeat empires. He turned toward General Varric. Prepare the Fourth Armada. I want humanity's largest colony destroyed before this mystery spreads panic through the galaxy. Within hours, thousands more Dominion warships jumped toward the colony known as New Horizon. Unlike the trapped fleets, these ships approached from another direction, hoping to bypass whatever had happened at the frontier. Their commanders expected heavy resistance. Instead, the colony remained quiet. Civilian traffic continued normally. Human defense ships stayed outside the system without moving into attack formation. General Varric smiled confidently. They know they've lost. He gave the order. Fire. Hundreds of plasma cannons lit the darkness. Thousands of missiles accelerated toward the peaceful colony. Then every weapon simply stopped. Missiles froze in space. Energy beams dissolved into harmless light. Railgun rounds turned into drifting pieces of metal. Across the fleet, stunned officers watched every offensive system become completely useless. Not disabled, ignored. As though the universe itself had refused to let the attack happen. Then a shadow passed over the fleet. Slowly, silently. It was so enormous that entire battleships disappeared beneath it. No sensors could identify its shape. No computer could calculate its size. Every captain instinctively looked upward through the bridge windows. One whispered a single sentence before his voice failed. "We're not looking at a ship. We're looking at something far older."